Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 48 of the Yay for Business podcast. We have a really special episode today. This is the first time that I'm going to be doing an episode with one of our team members. And this episode is all about how to up-level your business so that you can take time off. And our special guest is our operations manager, Alison Boons. So before we get started with Alison, I just want to share a little bit of background here and why we're doing this episode. I brought Alison onto the team in February of 2021 after about a year of attempting to, and okay, I wasn't like terrible at it, even though it's not my zone of genius, run the operations of the business by myself. And I really needed to do that for a year because, the reasons I won't get into for this episode, I sort of needed to clean up my business and make sure I understood everything that was going on and be really intentional about how we moved forward. And when I brought Alison onto the team, one of the first things we talked about was that we had this goal of taking 2 weeks off, the entire team, in the summer, and that I was going to need her help to make sure that the business was at a place by July that we could do that. So it's something we were talking about. We as a team decided to do in January, and then we knew that we had to start planning for as early as February to make it happen. And then of course, lo and behold, it was actually the Friday before Alison started that I found out I was pregnant. So I knew that not only were we going to have to up-level the business so that the whole team could take time off over the summer, but that the business was going to have to be up-leveled for me to be able to take my maternity leave at the end of the year. And so it couldn't have been like a better progression and better timing. And we're actually going to be doing a full month training in October, which is my first month of maternity leave, which is why we're doing it then, like almost to prove a point on, how to take time off from your business. And we're calling it our out of office training. And it's going to be all about how you can take 2 weeks off from your business or more, guilt and consequence free. And so Alison is on today because one of the most important parts of doing this is organizing your business, is making sure that you have the systems in place to make it happen. So I'm going to stop rambling about, why we're doing this. And I'm going to go ahead and bring Alison in and we'll have her introduce herself. So Alison, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So before we dive into we have so much we want to talk about in terms of, how this vacation thing works and the things that need to be considered and all of that. But I would love for you to share a little bit about your background and, the type of work you do and sort of what your specialty and expertise is in.
Yeah, for sure. Well, for the last 15 plus years, I have worked with entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, executives who run million-dollar companies in an executive assistant, business manager, operations manager role. So I have quite the gamut of experience in different fields and different organizations. What I've learned is that over that time, everybody has the same issue.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter where you are or what you do, you all have the same issues. And one of those big things is obviously organization, making sure that things are planned out, streamlined to make not only life for yourself, but your employees easier.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I want to emphasize that because business owners, entrepreneurs, whoever, creatives are notorious for thinking they can't take time off, for trying to do everything themselves, for not letting go of things, for being disorganized, for wanting things done their way and not sort of allowing their team to make things more scalable and streamlined. And I think it's really dangerous for the business, for the entrepreneur, and for the team members. It's just an unhealthy environment. And yeah, it feels like the norm.
For sure. It is the norm. Regardless of industry, it's the norm.
Yeah. Regardless of industry, regardless of how big your business is, whether you started it yesterday or you're running a multi-million-dollar corporation.
Yeah, it becomes like your baby. So you want to take care of your baby and you don't want to just hand it off to somebody else. So it makes sense, but that's why having the right people on your team can make all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Having the right people and letting those people do their job and be great and make mistakes and flounder and learn, right? Is really important. So we're going to be talking today about all this up-leveling of systems. And, my big question I've been asking myself all year, or, since February, has been, all right, what needs to happen in this business for me to take 3 months of maternity leave at the end of the year? And then, of course, we had this beautiful plan already to do the 2 weeks off in the summer. So that sort of, the 2 weeks off in the summer was the whole team off. So that was a little bit different, right? But it's really forced us to examine areas where we need to be more streamlined. We need to communicate to our clients. We need to, make sure that we have systems in place for things that happen regularly, that we're taking things off of my plate. Because if I'm necessary in areas of the business, then obviously I can't leave the business for any reason. So I want to talk about that. And I think what I want to start with is just I kind of want to start with the why we're doing this, and really the aspect of, why take time off in the first place. And I know this was always really important to me, right? You came onto the team and I already had this mission, but I actually would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the importance of actually taking that time off? Because I feel like you and I have really different life experiences with this.
Obviously it's very important. It's important for your mental health. It's important for, just to have a different experience in life. The last 2 years has been hard because I think people have been even more reluctant to take vacation because they can't go anywhere and they can't do anything. But that doesn't mean that the importance of it has disappeared. In fact, it's probably become more important.
Right. Yeah, I think so.
And I think from the roles that I've had, it's different when let's take people who work for themselves or solopreneurs or small businesses, and they take big corporations. If you are working in a big corporation, there's always somebody there to do your job. So it's much easier, even though you may be a little bit reluctant, it's much easier to take that time off. One, you usually get paid in some format, and two, your work is done for you while you're gone. And then this format, it's much more challenging because you may not get paid. And two, I
feel like there's something there around you may not get paid. And also there's just all these things that happen on a daily basis that it feels like you can't step away because a client's going to need something, or there's a project going on, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. But that doesn't take away the importance of it. I think, in fact, especially if you are one person, it becomes even more important because how do you restore your creativity? How do you, not get overwhelmed or in that stage of burnout if you're always saying yes to everything?
This isn't I didn't prepare you for this question before. So I hope you don't mind me asking, but we just last month did our 2 week time off, and I'm always amazed, for me personally, and obviously this is my idea and my thing, right? So I'm kind of shoving it down everyone else's throats. But for me, it's always amazing to me how before we take the time off, I kind of I'm excited to do it, but I'm also a little bit apprehensive because I'm oh, what are we forgetting? There's all these things, and you're in work mode, right? So it's kind of hard to imagine not being in work mode. And then sometimes the first day or two I have to kind of ease out of it mentally. But then as we got into the week, I was this is amazing. I never want these 2 weeks to end. And by the end of the 2 weeks, I was really ready to come back to work. I was excited. I'm curious if you want to share, because again, I think we're totally different people. I would be curious to hear what your experience was doing that as an experiment with this company.
Taking the actual time off, you mean?
Yeah, your actual, exactly. Yeah.
Well, for me, I think because of the role I've always been in, organizing and everything, is my goal is always, and I say this to people, if you're planning to take time off, is that last 3 days leading up, you should not have a full calendar. You're kind of mentally transitioning yourself to do less and less and less, so that, even 2 hours before you normally would sign off, you're ready to go. Everything's done. There's nothing to do. So that transition is much easier. I'm one of those people, I need to be doing something all the time.
Yeah, so right. Yeah.
having nothing to do or nowhere to go is a little bit harder. But I think what I was able to do was find little things every day that I wouldn't normally get to do.
Yeah.
Day to day, that it was something special, even though I was staying at home.
Are you glad that we did it? Or are you no, I'd never want to do that again?
I think everybody says they're oh, I don't really know if I want to do that leading up to it. And as soon as you're 5 days into a vacation, right. I swear everybody has the same mentality. I want to do this for the rest of my life. Regardless of what you do, who really wants to spend hours and hours and hours working when you could sit on the beach or travel or visit family instead.
And then that sort of hits an end, right? Where you get like a little restless on like, okay, yeah, I'm ready to do something now. But like, how nice is it? So I always say that my mark that I did this well is that I got bored. Like, if I got bored, I know that I've achieved my goal, because I know that means I've allowed my brain to totally relax and turn off of its like fight or flight work mode and go into, you know, rest and repair or whatever that is. And so once I'm bored, I'm like, awesome. It's all uphill from here. Like, so it can be a little uncomfortable, especially for those of us who work a lot. And I know that you wanted to do a bunch of projects and stuff, but I always know like, oh, I've like achieved something by letting myself get bored, because when you're in the throes of daily life, that just never happens and your brain can't relax. So
yeah. And I think by allowing not only yourself, I wouldn't even say allowing, forcing yourself to take time off, and forcing your team to take time off. A lot of people, even if they're given vacation time, will never take it. I've been in so many organizations where people have hours and hours banked of vacation that they never take.
Okay. So I really want to talk about that, because that is literally the whole like origin story of this entire concept. And I'm not acting like I made up the concept of vacation, but it was the holidays, 2020, 2021. And I had, it was obviously, you're in the throes of the coronavirus and all of that. And we had, several contractors on the team. I know you hadn't joined us yet. But I had decided, it's always been important for me over the holidays. It's the easiest time of the year to take 2 weeks off, because the whole world, quote unquote, most of the world, the majority is off, and most of our clients and people are off. So it's a lot. You're not fighting an uphill battle to take time off during that time. Whereas in the summer, even it can be hard because people don't take time off at the same time in the summer. So I had a few contractors who, because of coronavirus, they weren't able to visit family or go home or do whatever. And they said, I want to do some work over the holidays, because otherwise I have nothing else to do. And I thought, I really want to be the kind of leader who listens to my team and allows people to make their own decisions. I don't like telling people what to do. I like empowering people to make their own decisions. And so I said, okay, I don't want you to do the regular work, but like, let's think of a project or something that you can work on over the holidays that maybe otherwise there wouldn't be time for. Right. And so for these 2 people in particular, I gave them like, okay, here's what you can work on, but I want to be clear, like, there's no requirement here. I just want you to have something to like sink your teeth into if you're really bored. And I was like, okay, that was really nice of me. Like, pat on the back, Courtney, you did a good job. Well, once we all got back from the holidays and I was all refreshed, I'm like, it was so great to take 2 weeks off and, all that. And I asked these 2 people how it went. Both of them said the exact same thing. They said, I didn't even touch work, but the whole time I felt like I should have, because I wasn't able to totally turn my brain off, because I kept that loop open, that door open, that I could work. And I realized what you just said is absolutely true, is we have horrible habits in our society around taking time off. And that I, as a leader, had like an obligation to set a culture where we take time off, and that leaving people to their own decisions, actually, they end up perpetuating that, like, honestly, trauma that they've been trained in other jobs about feeling guilty about taking time off. And for me to counteract that, I actually needed to be a little bit more firm and say, no, the whole team is going to take 2 weeks off, and you are taking 2 weeks off from this business. And that would, like you said, force people to take time off. I just assumed people wanted to take time off and like didn't want to work. Silly me. And so that was really why we did the 2 weeks off over the summer. And then we'll do the same thing for the holidays, which I'm really excited about. And now over the holidays, it'll be so easy after we did it over the summer, don't you think?
Totally. Yeah. And I, like you were saying, I think the reason that people don't take time off is because they're so worried about all the work that has to be done.
Yeah.
That they would rather just do a little bit every day and take time off for the rest of the day than to leave it piling up. But the reality is it doesn't have to pile up.
Exactly. And so I want to jump into that a little bit, because I think that's really the meat and potatoes here, and action steps, and what people always like really want to hear about, right? Is like, okay, so what do I have to do? And I think that whenever you're hitting on exactly the nail on the head, people get so overwhelmed by all the work they'll have to do to prepare for it. And then the fear of like all the work that will build up when they come back, that it feels easier to just not take the time off at all. So I think we should talk about sort of these key areas. Like what are some key areas of any small business that maybe our listeners need to consider, and plan for before taking time off? Like, how would you get started with even planning for something like this?
For me, the first thing is always one, to have a plan. So what is your whole, and I do this, you can do this 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, whatever. I would always recommend doing a 12-month calendar. What does your year look like? What needs to happen? What are the constant events that happen? What are the constant, promotions you do every month? All of those things. So you have a bigger idea of what needs to happen, so that it's also easier to see where there might be space for you to take time off.
I love that. And so when I was in like high school, I remember like, the first day of school, they would like issue like the official planner, and you in the planner, it would have like the dates that are like the official like time. Anyway, like any planner is like, okay, these are the dates off. And I remember even like in college or university, they knew what weeks were off at the university for, spring break or winter break or whatever, like 10 years in advance. They could tell you what week is going to be off for those vacations. And I always really loved knowing that in advance, so I could sort of plan around that, so that those were marked off. And obviously like the rest is where you go to class and where you get work done. And I realized when you came in and started working with us, and you were really all about like having that, like knowing what's coming up, promotions and launches and everything for the next 12 months. And at first it like triggered my rebellion and like, I don't want to be that planned. But I was like, no, I remember back in school, I really liked that, because I felt like it gave me more freedom, not less freedom, to know, okay, next spring, this is, when we're doing this promotion. So now I can organize everything else around that, instead of feeling like I'm in this chaos of like deciding everything at the last minute and never knowing what's going on.
Yeah. And it's not rigid. It's not like you have to, especially with a business. You might decide, okay, well, we don't actually want to run this promotion this month, as you get 3 months away from it. But at least
you're not locked in.
That's right. Yeah. But at least you have some sort of a plan. And whether you have a team or don't have a team, for you to have an overall picture of your whole business for a whole year, gives you the time and space to plan appropriately, especially if you have team members that are going to pick up while you're not there.
Yeah.
Then you know how that works, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So we talked about sort of like that global calendar of what's going on in your business, when you're going to take time off, etc. So let's get into some of the nitty gritty there then. So I feel like I always think about the areas of business, right? Like just how we teach our Yay for 100K clients, in terms of, taking care of your clients, you've got your marketing, your sales, and your delivery, right? So like how you're growing the visibility of your business, how you're actually selling people on your services or your program or whatever, and then actually delivering what you've sold to them, whether it's a service or a program. And then there's just like all the other admin stuff that has to happen to run a business. So given those 4 areas, like let's just do like a little bit on each one, just so we can come up with some examples of what someone might want to do or consider or plan in advance for each area. Like, let's start with the marketing. So, in terms of if somebody wants to take 2 weeks off over the holidays or a 3-month maternity leave, like the world is your oyster, right? What are some things that might need to happen in terms of marketing?
So I always think of it as like a wedding. How you send out a save the date.
Yeah.
You send that out like 3 months in advance, giving people lots of heads up that something is going to change. And it doesn't mean that you have to have all the details ironed out, but making sure that your messaging to your clients is delivered to them well in advance. You don't want to tell them 2 weeks before that you're going to be off next month for a month or 3 months, because they're not going to be happy.
Yeah. And we did exactly that. We started telling our clients about our 2-week shutdown, because we didn't do any coaching or critiques or anything during those 2 weeks. And we started telling people 2 or 3 months in advance, and then repeatedly. So early and often communicating that.
Yeah. And this came up in a coaching call, not in the sense of taking time off, but because you're in it, you feel like you're saying it a lot. But the reality is you can't say it enough.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to see it every single time you send it.
Yeah. And even the same person might need to hear it like 7 times.
Yeah.
So you can't over communicate it. Like put it in your emails, put it in everything. Like we send our clients out like an email blast every week. It's in that email, like always updates and announcements and things like that. What about
changing
marketing?
your email signature so you have that little, hey, just a heads up, this is going to happen.
Yes, exactly. What about in terms of like if we're planning ahead with like, let's say during those weeks that I'm gone, I do want my business to post on Instagram or like whatever platform I'm on. What might I need to do in order to make sure that content is ready for those couple of weeks?
Yeah. So again, we're starting 3 to 6 months in advance so that we have the time to create the material that we need. So that overall general year calendar is going to give you an idea of what needs to happen while you're gone. And then it's a matter of preparing the content that you need, whether it's emails or graphics, making sure that is all ready to go so that you can schedule it, whether it's your email marketing platform or schedule it in a social media platform so that all of these happen for you while you're not even there.
Yeah, I love that. And like because like that's like mostly on my plate now is still like content and marketing is my zone of genius. So it's sort of my last thing that I'll ever let go of. And for me, I like to do, Denise Duffield Thomas taught me this actually in my like ADHD Facebook group, is she calls it like procrasti content creation, right? Like, so whenever she's procrastinating, she just sort of like naturally, because like, again, that's my zone of genius is creating content. I'll just like whip up posts on Instagram and schedule them well in advance so that there's not always a bunch of content scheduled in advance. It's not like super streamlined or anything, but it's sort of like, it helps me to kind of fill in the gaps and make sure that I'm getting my ideas out. So whenever I get one of those ideas, like, oh, that would be a great post, I literally just go into Later, which is what I use to plan our Instagram content. And I just whip up a post and just throw it in there. And it might not be the final version, but at least I've got it's like placeholdered in there so that when that date comes up, then there's some content to share. I think that's really helpful. The next department, I guess I want to chat about is sales. And I think this one's really interesting because I think a lot of people think, my business can't sell or make money if I'm not there, which is not true. And I would like to prove everyone wrong. And I'd like you to prove yourselves wrong on this. It's a fun thing to experiment with. And again, my question going into maternity leave has been, how can the business not just function, but grow while I'm gone, which requires sales. So what might someone need to consider in the sales department if they want to take time off and allow their business to make money while they're gone?
Yeah. I mean, well, first of all, it depends on the type of your business. Like, is it something that you actually need to physically do? And then the question would be, can you train somebody else to do that so that if things come on, that they can take that for you while you're off? The answer might be no, you can't, but that's okay too, because you continuously nurture, your sales and your marketing list. And it doesn't mean that people can't start when you return. Doesn't mean you can't make a sale and people start on the date of your return.
This is so important because a lot of our clients have this, they don't even realize they have this belief until we shatter it. And they're like, whoa, I didn't even realize I was thinking that. We have this belief that when you sell someone on something, they have to start immediately, it baffles me because I don't know where we learned this, but it's so consistent. And the truth is that you can book a client for 3 months from now. You can book a client to start in December and then tell them, okay, and then the 2 weeks over the holidays, the project will be on pause, right? Like you can do these things. It goes down to exactly what you said, Alison, communicating to that client early and often and not like telling them at the last minute and shifting their whole expectation of like what they're going to get from you and when, but you can absolutely organize your clients around you. We have a client who is a Facebook ads manager who took a couple of weeks off and realized, oops, I have a client who was launching during that time. So I actually had to work. Well, the lesson that she learned from that was, I need to make sure if I'm taking 2 weeks off that I don't like book clients to launch at that time. And I just tell my clients these 2 weeks are blacked out, guess what? A lot of people's launches they're not that organized. So they can delay them a couple of weeks or not, but you've decided that you have those 2 weeks off and that you're not going to book a client during those 2 weeks that you would need to work with one-on-one. That doesn't make any sense. That defeats the whole purpose of taking the time off. So that goes back to, again, what you said earlier, Alison, about having that calendar and knowing in advance and blocking off that margin so that you can say, okay, I already know right now that we're going to take 2 weeks off over the holidays. I already know that I'm doing my maternity leave. We already know that next summer we're probably going to do 2 weeks off again. We haven't picked the dates yet, but we know it'll happen at some point. So we know that we can kind of plan our promotions and other things around those dates. The other thing I want to mention on sales is that you have to know how sales actually happen in your business. I think some people actually just genuinely don't know exactly. They haven't really analyzed how sales happen, and that there might be parts of selling that someone on your team can do. So for example, we have people apply to work with us, and then someone on the team goes over that application. I don't personally look at that application. And then I was in the direct messages after that. But at this point, we've actually hired someone to do that part. So at this point, we have hired out our entire sales process. But even if we hadn't, there might be pieces of the selling that you can have someone else do. And then when you get back from your trip, you can follow up with all of those leads. Or, hey, let's say you had some applications come through for new clients, you can tell them, all right, you can book a sales or a booking call with me in 2 weeks, that's it. You're on vacation the next couple of weeks. So it doesn't necessarily have to stall your sales.
Yeah. And I always think, honestly, if you have somebody that is interested in partnering with you or working with you and they're really angry that you're taking time off, they're probably not a client for you in the first place.
It's a great test. Yeah.
Don't lose sleep over it, because most people, if you're taking a vacation and you've given people advance notice, they're like, oh, great. Have a great time. If I know what's going to happen with the work that you're doing for me, and I know I'm going to be taken care of or what the steps are, then I'm good. Bye. See you later.
Absolutely. Okay. Next piece is my favorite and probably the most important to us for sure, which is the delivery portion of whatever you're selling. So this is the actual client work or the actual running your course, or for us is actually taking care of our clients. So this is the piece I feel like is the most important of all of them. If you don't market while you're gone, if you don't do sales while you're gone, that's fine. You can pick those back up when you get back. But if you drop the ball on your current clients and you don't communicate with them that what's happening, but also if there's things that need to go out to them while you're gone, that's going to be a problem if that's not taken care of. So, thinking of some of our clients inside of Yay for 100K, what are some things that you would recommend people think about in terms of their clients feeling taken care of while they're on their vacation?
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends to what you can automate. Are there some things that you can automate to deliver them, whether it's reports or, can you have somebody else do that for you? So they're still having some sort of a connection. And I think it's also getting all the material. So say you have something happening with them right when you come back. Can you get that information from them before you leave? So there is no delay when you get back. You can just get started right away. So timelines and deadlines, I think, are not only good for you, but they're good for the client to know in order to meet their expectations, even when you return, that everything is set up before anybody goes away.
Yeah, I think I'm really glad you mentioned that, because I feel like that's where it gets stressful, is when you come back and you're like, oh man, I was out and I turned my brain off, and now I'm feeling it's very abrupt to come back to work, and there's all this stuff and I can't remember what I was doing before I left. And at that time I felt like I would never forget it. And now I'm like, what business? What am I doing? So I like the idea of kind of making a list for yourself of what needs to happen right when you get back. Cause I know when we got back from our 2 weeks, you had a list of some simple, there was some tech stuff, some funnels that needed to be turned back on, or pages that needed to have sections turned off and on and things like that. Right.
Yeah. And I think usually what I do is before I leave, I have a list of all the things that I didn't get done that are not a concern that can wait till I return. And also a list of the things that I know that I need to do those first couple of days coming back. So also not planning your first week back, full schedule, taking all those client appointments on your first day back with all the email that you probably have to check too is probably not a good idea.
First day back is basically just going to be email and Slack catch up. Like
totally, like gradually ease yourself into it, but you know where you left off so that you can also separate yourself from the business while you're on vacation if you have that running tally. And then you also know where you need to pick up when you come back.
Yeah. I also like to, while this works for me personally, but while I was on our vacation in July, I kind of saw it as like, there was like a ramping into vacation mode and then a ramping out of vacation mode. So like, at day 7, I was the deepest into vacation mode. I was like totally removed from work. But then from that point on, I was sort of slowly starting to, okay, I want to make sure I have like a general routine, like just turning my brain back on a little bit. Just like thinking like, oh yeah, next week I'm going to be doing X, Y, and Z, like not anything huge, but just sort of like reorienting myself to work. And then we came back on Monday. So Tuesday was our first day back in the office. On Monday, normally if I'm traveling, I like to give myself a buffer day after I travel before I come back to work, right? To like transition back in. I didn't do that this time, but I did at least on Monday evening. I was like, okay, what do I even need to do tomorrow? It's always going to be a bit like, getting back into it. I don't think that can be totally removed, but anything you can do to soften that just by kind of mentally preparing yourself that it's not going to be a normal week. It's going to be a easing back in. It's going to be a lot of emails or a lot of Slack messages and a lot of catching up. I think is really important. So I want to talk about this concept of like these 3 different levels that you and I have discussed around how taking time off is going to apply based on which level your business is at right now. Because I think this is really important. And showing people, those of you listening, you need to be doing this from day 1, whether you're a solopreneur or not. So let's talk about, I'll go through the 3 levels and then I'll let you kind of share what your thoughts are on each one and what you think like needs to be considered for each of these levels of business. So the first level we talked about is the solopreneur level. So this is where you are the only person working in your business. It is very rare, I think, that folks take vacation when they're at this level. And yet I personally think it's the most important time to start because it could really set some good foundations for your business. So what do you think needs to be considered at this point?
I think your number one thing as a solopreneur is to have a contingency plan.
Yeah.
It is so important. And if the last 2 years hasn't shown that life is a little bit unpredictable. And if you're running the show and saying yes to every client, what happens if you get sick? If you, as I say, get hit by a bus? Mm-hmm. What happens with all that money that you've taken in and you can't do the work? Like,
yes.
What happens?
Like what we were talking about, it's not just a matter of, oh, I'm not going to get things done. It's a matter of like, there's going to be damage control.
Yeah. Or even it can be, your dog dies and you need a few days. Like, what do you do? Mm-hmm. And then do you have the space in your business to take the capacity and the time that you need to recover and not have to worry with the stress about the work that's not being done?
Yeah. And if you do this at this level, that expression, the best offense is a good defense, then, and I think that, I always think I could have done a better job, but this is one thing I feel like I do better than most people because I've always valued time off so much. And I think I always am shocked at how bad people are at taking time off because it's so important to me, but is making sure that you create structure for your clients, or you create like canned emails, or you create put yourself through the thought experiment of, okay, if I got COVID, or if I was in the hospital, or like you said, my dog died, or, what actually happened to me when I was at this stage of business is I had a loved one go into the hospital for very, very serious, crisis for a couple of weeks. And I was totally taken out. And I actually had to call my business coach to come in, and I was in the middle of a launch of a course, and come in and sort of like handle, she kind of like delayed my launch and like told, I had a VA at the time, but she had to tell my VA what to do because I wasn't even able to do that. So that really showed me that I needed to be prepared for something like that. You don't want to get into that situation and then realize that, because you're already going to be stressed about whatever's going on. And then on top of that, you're worried about your business imploding and what kind of disaster you're going to come back to when you are recovered. So really important to start with this now, with this contingency plan. It is a defensive mechanism, but like we talked about, it also is up-leveling your business. Because Alison, you said this, like, so that you can get to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like a will in essence. You have a will for your business. What's going to happen if something happens? Yeah. And I bring it back to even what you teach in G for 100K with your client capacity calculator is, how much work are you taking on anyways, that there is no room if something was to happen?
Yeah. Do you even know what your capacity is?
Yeah.
Like, as a well person versus like if something happens to you. Yeah. Really important. Okay. So that's the first level. And that's really important that, at the foundation as a solopreneur starting out, you still need to be focusing on taking this time off and organizing your business and getting prepared for that. It's going to give you more freedom. I know it sounds like work, but it's going to give you more freedom. The next level is what we're kind of calling, like, you're at a point where you have contractors. So maybe you just have a VA, or maybe you have a few contractors working in your business, but you are still very much in charge of delegating everything and managing everything. So this is actually more where I was at when the crisis I shared happened. Was I did have a VA. I had a couple of people working with me, but they relied so much on me to tell them exactly what to do. And they weren't necessarily dedicated team members. They were contractors. So they weren't full-time or anything like that. So how does this change at this level? Like, what would taking time off look like, and why is it important?
At least when you have a team, you have people that can do some of the work for you. I tend to be super passionate about this, having been, assistant in some form, especially if it's your business. You're less inclined, or you don't want to, frankly, or I don't know what the actual reason is. You don't trust enough to give your baby away, right?
Probably fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would say, if you are not able to teach the people that you have, whether they're contractors or even when we get to the next stage, employees, then they probably shouldn't be, or they're not the right fit for you in the first place. If you don't trust them enough to teach them the process of how you do things or how you want things done, you're kind of still in that solopreneur level.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's fair. And I think that practicing with a team like this, it's sort of like you need to push yourself in small ways to let go. Maybe it's, for me, it's allowing the team to do the coaching on coaching calls. It's stepping away from the business for a day and allowing the team to handle something without me. So even if you're not quite ready to take 2 weeks off, try a long weekend. Try like just handing over a responsibility that makes you nervous, but letting it go anyway and not stepping in and micromanaging it, I think can help to build that trust, and also to make your team members feel more confident and more trusted. And also so that you can see if you've done a good job training them or not. Because if the team member doesn't do the thing correctly, the first response isn't, oh, I need to do it myself or find someone different. It's, oh, did I actually train this properly? Like, have I actually like documented this in a way that they're going to understand what I want before I decide that, oh, they didn't do it correctly, I need to just do it myself. So I think that's important. And I think at this level, right, like this is where you are able to take a couple of weeks off, because for the most part, you can have your team, your contractors take care of things for a couple of weeks. Maybe that's all you can trust. Maybe you need to build to that, but you're totally capable of doing that and allowing, someone to do your customer service while you're gone, allowing someone else to like maybe schedule Instagram content while you're gone, communicate with your clients, whatever it is. So that's what we're calling the second level of business. Now, the third level of business, this is where we want everyone to aspire to, even if you're just starting, which is where you have a dedicated team. Maybe you have full-time employees who work in your business and they're dedicated to your business. This is our goal here. And this is where we want everyone to kind of be playing within your minds, is that your entire business can operate without you, not just for 2 weeks, but in general. Like, this is where what I want people to play with is, even if you don't ultimately get to that point, we want you to get as close as you can to that point. So Alison, because this is more where we're headed. What do you have to say about that level of business?
As with anything, I think it's a trust. You have to trust the people that you have, and trust, like you said, that you've trained them and you've taught them about your business and what's important, and what isn't important. And I think, if you're able to do that, it's easier to step away if there's a plan. This is what needs to happen. This is who's responsible for it. This is how you can respond to X, Y, Z. That person should feel confident enough to be able to do that for you at that stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is some people might be terrified at that. The first thing people think is, but my business can't run without me because I'm the face of the business and I'm a solopreneur. And that's just, if you believe that's the case, then that's what's going to happen. I used to believe that was the case. And instead of having that, all these reasons why it won't work, I've started asking myself the question, how could we make that happen? What are the obstacles in the way of making that happen? For me, a big thing this year was letting go of sales, because I've always been the salesperson. So instead of we can't, do sales without me because I'm the salesperson, I asked the question, what might that look like? How could we do it? Because the fact of the matter is, okay, if I decide we can't, then I'm going to go on maternity leave for 3 months and no sales are going to happen. That's my choice, right? Or I don't get maternity leave. So you have to be willing to question those obstacles that come up as they pop up of why this might not be possible for you. Okay. So finally, one thing I want to just discern between with you, because I think this is important, is the difference between doing a full business shutdown vacation like we did, where we literally for 2 weeks, nothing happened in the entire company. Everyone was off, and having as you, the business owner, or even someone on your team, but as you, the business owner, stepping away for a couple of weeks. And why do each of those things? Let's start with that. Why do one versus the other? I think there's pros and cons to both.
I think there's times where you don't necessarily want to do a complete shutdown. Christmas time, the holidays make sense because the world tends to be quieter anyways. It's much easier to do that. It might have been your lifelong bucket list trip that you've won and you want to go away to Africa for a month. How do you make that happen? There's always a time and a place for everything. It doesn't necessarily make one right or wrong.
No, yeah. I think for me, the motivation for the shutdown was almost, like I said, the need to force everyone on the team to take care of themselves. Right. I believe that rest and recovery is better for the business anyway. We're not losing out. We're not falling behind. We're actually going to be better at our work by doing that. I think that the second one of the CEO or the business owner or the entrepreneur taking the time off is about, you probably started your business to have freedom in the first place. And so in order to have that freedom, you have to build a business that can allow you to step away for a period of time, whether you're a solopreneur and you're just sort of going to say, okay, for those 2 weeks or 3 weeks, nothing's going to happen, or you build a team so that your business can actually operate and function without you or anywhere in between. That's really about you as the CEO, making sure that you're building a healthy business that can function without you and give you freedom. And then the shutdown weeks are more for, hey, I want to make sure that I'm building a healthy business and that my team members who are human beings are also making sure to rest and recover, and that I'm creating that culture on my team. So, I think there's a time and a place for each one, like you said. So I feel like we covered so much, and I know this is getting a bit long, and I already skipped a couple of questions because there's so much more we could talk about. I think though, we'll leave it at that. We're going to be going into this so much more, or you're going to be going into this so much more during the out of office training that we're doing for the entire month of October. So just to be clear to everyone, Alison is going to be running inside of Yay for 100K a month-long training on how to prepare your business, every step you need to do to take 2 weeks off over the holidays. Again, this isn't just about taking 2 weeks off over the holidays. It's about up-leveling your business so that you are not required to exist in it at all times and everything depends on you, which is so much more powerful than just like, I'm taking time off over the holidays. But let's talk about what that's going to look like a little bit so that we can get people applying to Yay for 100K so they can join us in October. Alison, what can people expect from that?
So every week we'll be doing a live meeting where we will review the lesson, some action steps, some tangible things that you can take away right from that lesson and implement right away, as well as some homework assignments and engagement in the Facebook group so that, we can answer your questions and support you as you start to build out your plan.
Yeah. And I'm really excited that this is happening in October because I think people get to like December 1st and they're like, oh yeah, I want to take time off over the holidays.
Yeah. And that's exactly why we're doing it in October so that you can literally use those 4 weeks to plan for the last 2 weeks of December.
Yeah. Cause I like to view December as like a wind down time, not a, oh my God, let's get everything done kind of time. Yeah. And I'm really excited to have Alison running this because she's the operational brains behind this. So even if you're not like, even if you're more like me and you're more the creative, but if you're in that role in your business as the operations person, which basically if you don't have an operations person, you're in that role in your business requires this of you. So you need to step up to the plate and you're not going to be perfect at it. But that's why we're doing this training is so that you can do your best to get your business to that point so that you can bring in an operations person who can help you to take care of everything, right, in your business. And also because I'm going to be out of office. So this is the beautiful thing about this. I'm going to be out of office during the time that we're doing the training on out of office. So we are walking our talk, people. Like this is exactly how we do it. And we've developed this great framework we're calling the DOER framework, DOER. So Alison's going to teach each step of that process. And I'm so excited. So if you are interested in making this happen and up-leveling the systems in your business, which is just going to help your business to grow, make more money, and more importantly to me, for you to actually have freedom so that you can take that time off, make sure to apply for Yay for 100K over at CourtneyChaal.com/apply. And if you end up joining us, then you'll be joining us for the whole month of October out of office training. All right. Thank you so much, Alison, for joining me today and sharing some of this behind the scenes on how we run the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you love today's content and are ready to finally start making a full-time income from your business this year, make sure to get on the wait list for my program, Yay for Clients, over at yayforclients.com, and you'll be notified the next time enrollment is open. Or if you're already booked with clients and you want to learn how you can turn your signature service into a signature program and add 100K of revenue to your bottom line, come apply to my group coaching program, Yay for 100K, over at CourtneyChaal.com/apply. Thanks again and have an awesome day.